Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Maker's Workbench. I'm your host Charles, and in this video I'm going to be designing and 3D printing a custom part that will hang my new Edsyn Soldapullt Desoldering pump on my workbench's pegboard. This was a quick and fun project, so stick around. Okay, so let's get started designing this. The first thing we're going to do is create a new sketch, and we're going to select the bottom sketch plane, and we're going to start by creating a 27mm diameter circle. So we're going to hit C for circle, and we're just going to hit 27 to make it 27mm in diameter. Now we need to offset this by 2mm, so we're going to highlight the circle, hit O for offset. We're going to offset it by 2mm to the outside. I'm just going to turn off dimensions here. We have more room to work. Okay, so now we need to create some construction lines, and to do that we need to hit L for line, and I'm going to kind of snap to the center of the circle, but I'm not going to click. I'm just going to drag away, and you can see that it's inferencing that circle, that center point. So I'm going to click here and just click there. It's an arbitrary length. It doesn't really matter. They're construction lines. Next, I want to highlight this line and hit X, and that's going to make it a dotted or dashed construction line. Now we want to add one vertical, so we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to highlight that center but not click, drag up, and it's going to inference us to that center point. Make sure we're at 90 degrees. We'll come down just another arbitrary length, and we're going to do the same thing. Highlight that, hit X, turn it into a construction line. Now we're going to work with these lines to build the rest of the body of the hanger. So I want to highlight the center line, and I'm going to offset it by 6mm. That's going to create the bottom of the, I guess we'll call it the receptacle, where you actually slide the Soldapullt in. Now we also want to click this middle line, and we're going to offset it by -20mm. And that's going to create the extremity of our piece. Now we want to select the center line, the center vertical line, and we're going to offset it by 12.5mm to one side. We're going to offset it to the other side by -12.5mm. And now we're going to use our trim tool to clean things up. So while you're still in this sketch, hit T for trim, and we're just going to trim that middle line, and it'll trim both sides off. And then we can do the same here, and it'll trim almost. We'll trim there, and we'll trim there. We'll trim this part, and this part. Now we're going to start here. We'll trim this part of the circle and this part of the circle, then this part, then that part, the next part, and the following part. And now we've cut our circle. Now we need to trim these lines, and I'm going to even zoom in here, and we'll trim right here, and we'll trim right here, and then we can just escape out of the trim tool and delete these lines here. We're going to trim again, and we're going to trim this line, and we're going to trim this line. We're going to make these two lines construction lines. And now we want to add a line in the center of these for an arc we're going to create in just a second. So to do that, I like to hit L for line, and then if you scroll across this center line, it will snap to the midpoint, which is indicated by the triangle. I'm going to drag that line 90 degrees straight down, and I'm just going to make it 3mm long. We're going to do the same to this side. We're going to hit L for line, and we're going to drag across until we snap to the middle, drag it 90 degrees down, and then hit 3 for 3mm. Alright, now we want to put arcs there so we can create little balls on the end of this piece. So we're going to create arc, 3-point arc, and we're going to anchor the two ends of our arc here and here, and then we'll drag down to the 3mm point here. We're going to do the same here. We're going to go anchor there, and drag here. Now we can use our trim tool again, so we'll escape out of the arc tool, and we'll hit T for trim, and we'll get rid of these big vertical lines first, and then these two little construction lines. We're also going to go ahead and get rid of our center point construction line. We don't really need that anymore. We'll delete that and highlight that one, hit delete as well. And we have one more line we need to trim out of this. So we'll hit T for trim again, and we'll just trim this part of the circle there. So there you can see there's the basic shape of this hanger that's going to hold our solder pult to a pegboard or vertical surface that you attach it to. So we're finished with this sketch. So we're going to click Finish Sketch. Then we're going to use the orbit tool to kind of just get a weird perspective view like that. I like to do that before I extrude. So then we're going to hit Extrude up here. And we're going to extrude it 25 millimeters, not 258, but 25. And there is the basic shape. If you don't plan on screwing this into whatever vertical surface you attach it to, you can stop here and move straight to 3D printing. But I like to add a couple screws just for added protection, especially in pegboard that's made out of like an MDF type fiberboard, and double-sided tape tends to not stick to it very well. So the next thing we want to do is kind of use the orbit tool to pan around to the back of our part, and then we're going to create a new sketch plane on the back of that part. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to make some lines, so we're going to just trace this square. So hit L for line and snap to that corner, and then snap to that corner, back to that corner, and that corner, that corner, that corner. You don't have to trace the whole thing. All you really need to do is these top two lines, but I just did it all. So now we're going to hit L for line again, and we're going to drag across until we hit midpoint. We're going to drag that line all the way down until it snaps to the bottom line. Now I want to offset this line. We're going to highlight it and click O for offset. We're going to offset it by 7 millimeters. And then we're going to do the same at the bottom. We're going to highlight it, then hit O for offset, 7 millimeters. Now I'm going to make these lines construction lines by highlighting them and pressing X on my keyboard. Now I want to make a 3 millimeter circle where these lines converge. So we'll hit C for circle. We'll zoom in so you can see that it's snapping there. We'll pull out and hit 3 for 3 millimeters. We'll do the same here. Now we have our first holes. We're going to recess these holes too, but I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So we're going to finish this sketch. We're going to orbit tool to another perspective view. I just like to work this way. Then we're going to click our extrude tool, and we're going to select both circles. We're going to extrude them by, we'll just, an arbitrary number, 7 millimeters. That should get us all the way through. We'll just go 10. That'll put us all the way through. Now we have holes extruded in our part. So this isn't where I stop here, because I want to put some recessed holes on here for the screw heads to recess into so they don't interfere with the solder pult when I'm hanging it. There's other ways to do this. You can use construction planes and use an offset plane or something like that to make a new construction plane that projects from here up to here. But I just find it easier and quicker for me to turn our sketch back on from the back, and we're going to extrude this again. So we're going to extrude this by, we'll just say -8. We're going to do the same with this one. And what you see will happen is that'll put just a little nub on this side. All right, enter. Now we have our little nubs sticking out here. I'm going to do the same thing there and there, but this time I'm going to extrude it by -7 point. Messed up. We're going to click them with our extrude tool, and we're going to extrude by -7.5. So what that's going to do is leave a little 0.5 millimeter disc on this side. So now I'm going to click construction plane, or a new construction sketch. So now what we're going to do is come to the front. You can see that leaves 2 little 0.5 millimeter nubs sticking out. So now we're going to create a new sketch, and we're going to create a sketch plane on the top one. We're going to hit C for circle. It will automatically inference to the center of the circle, if you can see that right there. And we're going to make this circle 8 millimeters in diameter. And we're going to finish that sketch, and we're going to do the same thing to this bottom one. All right, so we will select new sketch, select that circle, hit C for circle, and then drag it out at 8 millimeters. Now what we can do is finish sketch, and I'm going to give you a little bit better of an angle here to see what's happening. You can see those sketches are on the front of those nubs, and what I like to do is extrude both of them, make sure we select the center too, and we're going to extrude that -5, and we're just going to orbit from the side, and I'm going to do 4.5 instead of -5. So we'll just change this to -4.5. I like that better. And over here in the extrude preference window, we're going to select cut. Click OK, and there we have our piece. Let's turn off all our sketches, and you can see that we have some 3mm holes for the screws to go through and some 4.5mm deep recesses for the screw heads to fit down in. And that's it for this part. So what we're going to do is move over to the 3D printing plane now. Or we're going to move over to the 3D printing portion. So what I want to do is select Tools up here at the top, click Make, and then I have it set to send to 3D Print Utility. If you want to save the STL file, you can just uncheck this, select the file, click OK, and it will let you save it wherever you want on your computer. But since I have my 3D Print Utility, which is Prusa Slicer, already configured with Fusion 360, I can just click Send to 3D Print Utility, and you see it says Application Prusa Slicer. So now if I hit OK, it'll take a second, and then Prusa Slicer will open with this part already in it. And there's our part. So if we zoom in here, you can see there's everything we did. And I'm going to print this today at a layer height of 0.15 millimeters using the 0.15 millimeter 100mm linear advance preset in Prusa Slicer. I'm going to be using generic PLA, and my printer is a Prusa i3 Mark IIs. We're not going to use supports, we're not going to use a brim, but what we are going to do is come to our print settings, and we're going to give this 6 perimeters. Some people call these shells, but we're going to 6 perimeters, and we're going to change our solid layers on the top and bottom to 7. Then we're going to come to the infill tab, and we're going to change our infill to gyroid. We're going to change our infill percentage to 15%, and then we're going to change our top fill pattern to octagram spiral and our bottom fill pattern to octagram spiral. Now we can come back to the platter tab, click Slice now, and just give it a second, and as you can see, our part sliced. It's going to take roughly 59 minutes to print, and you can see if we scrub down through the layers, you can see where the infill is, but you can see that all the extremities have a lot of shells around them, and that adds a lot of rigidity to the part and strength, especially in the part here that's going to be flexing when we push in our Soldapullt. So anyway, that's going to be it. I'm going to move it over to the 3D printer, and you'll see that in just a second. For this print, I'm going to be using Polymaker's Polylite PLA in this beautiful teal blue color. Polymaker recommends a nozzle temperature of 190 degrees Celsius to 230 degrees Celsius and a bed temperature of 25°C to 60°C. I'm going to be printing this part's first layer at 215 degrees C with all subsequent layers at 210 degrees C. My bed temperature will be set to 60 degrees C for the duration of the print, and I'll be using my trusty Prusa i3 Mark IIs to handle the actual printing duties. In full disclosure, Polymaker is a sponsor of the Maker's Workbench and provides all of our 3D printing filament free of charge. Polylite is a very high quality PLA filament that I use every day, and if you would like to try it out for yourself, I have left an Amazon affiliate link in the description below where you can buy this exact color. Note that the Maker's Workbench receives a small commission from any purchases this link generate. With the Prusa i3 Mark IIs preheated and the bed wiped down with 91% isopropyl alcohol, we can select the Soldapult's Hanger G-code file and let the printer do its thing. While the part is printing, I want to take a moment to talk about this video's sponsor, Edsyn. In my previous video, card here, I talked briefly about Edsyn's history and mentioned that the company was founded in 1961 by Bill and Shirley Fortune in their garage, and that all started with a small handheld desoldering pump called the Soldapullt, which happens to be the product we're making this hanger for. The Soldapullt was the first of its kind, and it was so innovative that the U.S. Patent and Trade Office granted Bill's application for a patent on it. Edsyn has continued to innovate and improve on the Soldapult's design over the years, and it has become the go-to desoldering pump throughout the electrical engineering and manufacturing industries worldwide. Best of all, the Soldapullt is made right here in the USA at Edsyn's manufacturing facility in Van Nuys, California. Additionally, like all of Edsyn's products, each of the Soldapullt designs are rebuildable and easy to maintain with Edsyn's affordable Soldapullt maintenance kits. I'm going to do a full hands-on review and showcase my Soldapullt Deluxe and its maintenance kit in a future video, so check back for that in a few weeks. Now let's get back to the 3D print. It should be finishing up shortly. As you can see, the print turned out quite well, and despite some slight layer banding, it's not too shabby. I'm going to show you how to fix the layer banding in a future video, but for the part we just made, a few little imperfections won't hurt a thing. Now let's get the hanger mounted onto my workbench's pegboard. I added some VHB double-sided tape to the back of the hanger, which only really serves to hold it in place as I drive in the screws. I'm using a pair of 3mm by 10mm wood screws to hold it tightly in place. And it works! It clips in quite firmly, but is easy to remove and install. Unfortunately, as you can see, the pegboard on my workbench really flexes a lot when any pressure is applied to it at all. And honestly, I hate it. I bought this workbench from Uline back in 2013, and while it has served its purpose, it's not a very lab-friendly workbench. It's not very stable, and the cantilevered shelf on top just serves to further destabilize things by raising the workbench's center of gravity by quite a bit. I'll replace it one day when I can afford to, but for now, it's going to have to work. If you want to download the STL file or the design files for this part in several different formats, I have them available for purchase on my Cults 3D page for just a few bucks. If you're a member of my Patreon, you get free access to all of my design files, as well as getting to watch all of my videos a day early. I want to thank Edsyn for sponsoring the Maker's Workbench and this video. They're a great company to collaborate with, and they're all in with their support for the Maker community. I have links to the Edsyn website and some of their products which I endorse in the description below. If you're looking to upgrade your soldering game, consider purchasing your next soldering station and soldering accessories from them, or by using the affiliate links in the description below, and let them know that the Maker's Workbench sent you. Before this video ends, I just want to ask that you give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful in any way, and that you also consider subscribing to this channel, as well as ringing the notification bell so that you get notified when I post new content or start a live stream. Only 8% of you who watch this video are subscribed, and even less are receiving notifications when I post new content. I'm really pushing hard to grow this channel in 2021, and I'm doing this full time, at least for the time being. So knowing that you enjoy this content really helps motivate me to create new videos. That's going to wrap up things for this video. I want to thank you for taking time to watch my content, and as always, hack the world and make awesome.